Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Will with Schedulefly, and I'm really excited to have Price Beall on the phone today. Price he's actually on the way between Bluffton, South Carolina, and Hilton Head right now. He lives in Hilton Head. He's got four restaurants, two concepts. Truffles Cafe has two locations, and Chow Daddy's has two locations. And Price has been in the restaurant business for quite some time. In fact, he opened Truffles in 1983. So here we are. The first location of Truffles opened in Sea Pines in 83. So what's that, 35 years later, and that thing is still trucking. It's got a second location. It's an extremely popular place, well regarded. If you've been around the area, you've heard of Truffles. And then a second concept, Chow Daddy's, which first started in 2014, I think. Is that right, Price?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. Hey, thank you for taking the time to join, and just appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Sure. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, take me back a little bit. What prompted you to start Truffles back in '83?
Well, my brother started Ruby Tuesday. He founded Ruby Tuesday restaurants, and in '82 he sold, went from a private company to a public company when Morrison's bought Ruby Tuesday. And at that point, I was just like, I didn't mind working that hard for family, but I didn't feel like working that hard for another company.
Mm.
And so my brother Sandy's wife, Chris, and I opened the first Truffles on Hilton Head.
Gotcha. And tell me about Truffles. What was the like when you first got it started? What was missing in Hilton Head, and what were you all trying to do there?
Well, Charles and Joe Fraser, the founders of Sea Pines, were opening a new shopping center. And they'd met my brother socially, and so they wanted us to do a new kind of concept. And so at the time, there was Vita France was doing franchise bakeries. And so we went to New York and went to Zabar's and Balducci's, and Dino De Laurento had a big, it was called the DDL Food Show, and it was sort of like what Eatsy's or I don't know if you're familiar with Eatsy's, but they had a bunch of locations. You could get prepared salads, roasted meats, roasted vegetables, cheeses, all kinds of stuff. So we had refrigerated cases and a franchise bakery, and we had a little retail area where we sold like silver palette, which was a big item back then. And we had wine, so you could select your bottle of wine off the shelf, and then we chill it. And we probably had about 125 seats and probably about 6,000 square feet. And so we had a market, a grocery, a bakery, and that was great. But then we determined that all the cheeses and meats were more therapeutic than profitable, and
Ah,
so we eventually scaled back from a market cafe to a bakery cafe. And then as part baked breads became more and more available, we just became cafe. And we turned the retail food market into a retail gift market. And so that evolution was over probably a 10-year period.
okay.
So
Well, I want to get to opening the second and then coming up with a new concept. But 35 years and Truffles is still doing really well. Why? How is that? What have you all? I mean, I know I read an article where you talked about consistency and great guest service, and I'm sure that's endured for 35 years. But that's just a really admirable thing to be able to have a concept that you
well,
changed
thank
some at
you.
first, but for that long to be successful like that. What did you guys figure out there?
Well, it's all about the people that work with us, and we're very selective in who we hire. We've got a great operating partner that's been with us about 15 years, Fernando Losada, and his wife Heather runs our office. And the thing is, like with we're like a family business, and we treat our employees like family. But I had the blessing of all that corporate structure from Ruby Tuesday, so I had my systems and controls. And with Ruby Tuesdays, I probably got to work as an employee under 30 different managers, so I
Hmm.
got to witness what management styles worked and which ones, which managers motivated me to do great and which managers just turned me off and I could have cared less to do a thing for them. And so, I just stored all that information, and I just we always try to treat people like we want to be treated ourselves. and I think that just falls down into, the respect we have for each other, and their desire to be as passionate about what we do, as we are, and it helps with the consistency, and I think that without the great team, and that is our biggest challenge, finding those great people. But we try not to deviate from that priority, and I think that they are our success.
Slow to hire.
Yeah, we're slow to hire.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to be if you have those kinds of standards, I guess, because it's sometimes challenging to find people that may have that mentality. At least I hear that more and more these days.
It is, because everyone, so many people, so many restaurants, it seems it's much easier for people to work there because the standards are different, and that's fine. But and being on Hilton Head, our job market, as Bluffton, Hilton Head's just I think it's the second largest barrier island on the East Coast, but it's not that big, and the Bluffton market has just exploded. So before, when all the jobs were on Hilton Head, everybody came from Bluffton. Now everybody in Bluffton stays in Bluffton. So it's really a tight job market over here. So we take really great care of our people.
What do you do though? Like if you lose somebody unexpectedly or you're short, like how do you? Is there the temptation to just hire the first person you can to just kind of hold the fort down, or have you just had the discipline to make sure that you wait and your team rallies together to fill the gap until you find the right people?
We all just sort of pull together. With 4 locations, we have everybody's pretty much cross trained to go one place or another, especially our cooks and our service team. So we just pull together, and we reward our we do referrals to our team members for people they bring in. Because it's always fun to work with your friends, and so we encourage that, and so we just we sold out.
Well, let me ask. It sounds like it was a great opportunity to kind of marry the experience you had in a corporate structure and in building something on your own. Do you when you talked about management styles, like what are some of the styles that you saw that really turned you off, and do you still see that in the industry today, or does the industry change a lot?
I think it's as times change, people change, and priorities change, and the lessons your parents teach you change, and all that. I think I think leading by example is the most important thing. The biggest turnoff for me was somebody go, "Hey, go do this," and they go stand and lean against the wall or something. As an employee, I just think, as an employer to an employee, I want to say, "Hey, will you help me do this?" And I'll get them started or whatever. But I'm not gonna, if I'm busy, it's one thing, but I'm not gonna ask somebody to do something and then stand there and watch them do it. That's just, to me, is the biggest turn off. I don't know. Oh, that always drove me insane.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Leading by example is it really is a big thing. You mentioned something, the lessons that parents teach change, from generation to generation. What do you, with the years you've been doing this, I'm sure you've seen a lot of this. Are you seeing people that, are there fewer people these days that just have the mentality of, show up when you're supposed to, do what you say you're going to do it with a smile, be willing to work hard for your team? I mean, is that becoming less common these days, or what are the things that you're seeing? Like, what are parents teaching their kids these days that's different maybe than, a couple of decades ago?
I don't know if it's what they're teaching them. I think it's more of what they're not teaching.
What they're not teaching them. Okay.
Everybody's busy, and it takes a lot of time to be a good parent. And I mean, we're in a different world. Both parents work, and so it's just, things get lost. And I think what I see is where my generation was like, this is a great opportunity for me. What can I do, to do more? The generation now seems to be like, well, what's in it for me? And, I don't know. That seems like a lot. That's not what I signed on for. We asked a waitress to host the other night. We were short a host, and she's like, well, that's not what I signed on for. No, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, well, bye.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But that kind of mentality of that, it's all about me. And you know, it's like some children, they just don't want to work. You know, their idea of work is just a little different than what work really is, and I think that's, you know, an age maturity thing, but it seems to be more prevalent lately than. And I think that's because parents give their children so much, which is not, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying that it sort of kills the motivation for them to do more on their own. You know, so.
Well, yes, that's right. I hear you completely. It's the
And these are all nice people.
No, I know, absolutely.
I mean no judgment or criticism. It's just an observation.
Yeah, for sure. No, I know. It's that there was an opportunity for a young lady to go above and beyond and make herself extremely valuable, which is that gap that, and maybe it's just age, or you know, but people. I have 3 kids, and people have heard me on this podcast talk about this, but I really am trying to instill in them, like, that's what you do. You go above and beyond. You do the unexpected because you make yourself valuable, indispensable, and then that gives yourself, it opens up opportunities. Like you've grown from Truffles to you've got now 4 locations. So Fernando, you said, his wife, they've grown, I'm sure, within the organization over 15 years. And as you build a business, if you work for particularly, and I always think independent restaurants are such a great place to work, because a good, successful independent restaurant owner that does it right, that leads by example, that's investing in the community, is going to keep growing that business. And there's going to be more and more opportunities over time that open up. And these opportunities go to the people that say, yeah, I'll hope. What do you need me to do? Right?
Exactly.
It's really not that hard. Like if you want more for yourself, like you give a little more and you wind up getting a lot more. It's the byproduct is you wind up making more money, having more success, having more, all that stuff, you know, is the byproduct of just saying, yeah, how can I help? Right?
Anytime we ask somebody to do something that's outside of their job description or whatever, which the job description is whatever we need them to do. But, well, you know, like in her situation, we said, well, you know, it won't cost you any money. We'll make sure you make the same money you would have made as a server, you know, and we always do that it's not like we expect somebody to lose money to do a favor for us, you know.
Yeah.
We always take care of that. And her response was just so off that I was like, wow, you know, okay, well, same money, just a little different job. Anyway, yeah, so it's a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, so you've got a good formula going at Truffles, and then when did you open your second location?
We opened our second location in 2000, and that was in Bluffton, the second Truffles.
Okay, so it's been 18 years since you opened the second Truffles.
Yeah, we opened one. We did a license agreement with Morrison's, and they opened a series of Truffles under the brand name of Silver Spoon.
Okay.
Cafe, and they had one, and they had about 10 of them at one time, and then their operating partner bought them from them, and I think they just went away. But so that kept us busy in between, and then we opened one in Savannah in like 2000. I think 2004, Truffles, and we ended up selling it to our general manager. I got married, and I didn't want to drive back and forth to Savannah, so we sold it to them, and then things didn't work out for them personally, so that went away. So,
gotcha. And
unfortunately,
you mentioned you were driving back and forth today. Do you still spend a lot of your time in the 4 locations?
Oh yeah, I do. I spend more time in Chow Daddy's now than I do at Truffles, but I still eat at least 3 meals a week in one of the Truffles, if not 4 meals a week in the Truffles, just to go in and talk to everybody and have dinner and, you know, just check out the food and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but always go in and talk to the teams and everything.
Do you find that to be challenging, that as you've grown, you know, with each location, you by default are able to spend probably a little less time in each? Has that been a challenge for you, or has it been something that you've just been able to have trust in folks like Fernando and Heather and your management team to?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a great general manager at Sea Pines. Paul's been with us for probably 10 years. Janine's been with us. She's the general manager of Truffles in Bluffton, probably 10 or 12 years. So that's, I don't micromanage anyone.
Mm.
They have their budgets and their specs, and they work hard to make that happen. And so I enjoy going in and talking to everybody, and so yeah, I still like to go in there.
Yeah, and then so what prompted in 2014? I mean, I know before that you were planning, but what prompted you all to open Chow Daddy's? You saw another gap in the market?
Well, Ruby's had opened 2 Truffles, one in Atlanta and at Lenox Mall, and one in Orlando, and at Orange Park. And so they wanted to sell those to me, and I was just at the point where I didn't feel like being in the car, and so I drove down to Point Clear and met with Sandy, and we went over a bunch of numbers and everything, and we had purchased this building on Hilton Head that was basically sitting empty, and so we just start thinking of, well, let's do something together. And so we started working on the concept and how we could fit it into the building that we owned, and yeah, Chow Daddy's just sort of came along. We had we got his wife Susanna and my wife Karen and I sat down, and or through emails anyway, we came up with everything we like to eat, and so we basically got our core menu, and just started working on it. And it was different than, like, normally, like with Truffles, my Karen or we'll find recipes and we'll go, let's see if we can make this work in the restaurant or whatever. But with Chow Daddy's, we did the menu first and then had to go figure out the recipes and make everything we had on the menu. So it was really fun. Actually, I loved doing it. And so we actually had like 18 full menu revisions before we opened, because we would get the menu and then Sandy and Susanna would fly in and we'd do a big food show. And if everybody liked what was there, then it stayed. And if we didn't like it, then it would, get X'd off, and we'd come up with another item to replace it. And then we would, go through the whole process again of, can we produce it? Can we do volume with this item? That kind of thing. So it was time consuming and fun. And then my sister Hope came up with the name Chow Daddy's, and we just happened to check, and we got the federal registration for it and everything, and everything just sort of worked out.
You mentioned you bought the building, so do you own? I mean, what are your thoughts on owning versus leasing, pros and cons, things like that?
Well, I mean, if you've got a good lease and a good landlord, it's certainly a not a bad thing. These 2 buildings that we own both Chow Daddy's buildings, and they just sort of came, it just was the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
Where, Truffles, when we opened it, there weren't really that many places you could buy, and the Belfair location was just really great. A friend of ours developed Belfair Town Village, and so he gave us a really prime spot. And so those, the 2 Truffles worked out to be, to lease.
What do you want to look for in a lease? Like, what are the things that you've seen people get wrong in lease negotiations? Because I know that can eventually cause, a good business can go out of business sometimes if leases aren't negotiated well. What are the things that you would recommend that people consider if they're in a situation where they can't buy?
Well, I think, lease rates and all that can fluctuate a lot, but in the total picture, whether you're paying $18 a foot or $20 a foot, if it's a great location, you can make it up. I think where people, the biggest mistake people make is not getting options. Enough options on the end of the lease. Like Sea Pine Center, the owners there are really amazing. I've got options probably till after I'm gone.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because that way, if you're doing great, then it's locked in. But if you don't, then you could have a great business, and then the landlord decides to put a grocery store in there or something, and what do you do?
Yeah. Okay, so options at the end of the lease are really important.
Yeah, and just watching out for the CAM, the all the extra fees. Make sure you know what they are. But
Do you think that that's an indicator a lot of times of like if you're trying to figure out the type of landlord you want, and if you're not able to get options, is that a red flag?
well, I would think long and hard before I because I don't know. I haven't opened a restaurant in a long time. And Chow Daddy's is low overhead, so it was a very fast return.
Yeah.
Where with Truffles, it's a lot. Probably 2.5 times, 3 times the equipment pack. The outfit. So it's a little slower process, but I wouldn't want to put 3 or 4 years into my business to the point where it starts making some great money, and then have 3 years left on my lease. I mean, what are you gonna, then if you're doing really great, then what negotiating power do you have other than leave, and why would you want to leave?
Yep. Yep.
So
Now you've mentioned, so you've had like the folks in Savannah that were running the Truffles there, and you've seen, I'm sure, other examples of this. Like, what are some things that have caused people to not be successful in the restaurant business?
well, in their case, it was an unfortunate situation that they ended up getting a divorce.
Yeah.
And so he was the restaurant person, and her family had the money, and they're very nice, kind, nice people, and it was just a unfortunate situation, and so it just didn't work out for them. But I think being undercapitalized is a big problem. If you start out and you don't start out with a bang, then you still have all your expenses, and I think a lot of businesses fail because they don't have enough cash.
How much like what's a good rule of thumb if you could think of one?
Oh my gosh,
Like how many months worth of?
I would think you'd want at least 6 months. I
Yeah.
mean, just to be safe, if not a year.
Yeah.
It just depends. If you open up and you're crazy busy, then no worries.
Yeah. But if you don't, yeah, exactly. Do you so that, which gets into, sometimes folks, you may or may not need to get investors. Did you get investors, or were you self-funded? You and family funded it, or?
We were family funded, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Raising money can be a challenging thing too. I think for a lot of people to find the right types of investors and so forth. I'm always curious about that.
Yeah. I luckily I haven't had to do that. We've got a great bank here, a great local bank, and they take really good care of us, and so everything's been good.
What about, especially since you've had experience in a corporate structure, tell me the things about being independently owned and operated that you really like.
Well, of course, not having the bureaucracy of the corporate world, and having it always bothered me when people pretend like they're, I don't know, it's just different. I mean, we decide to do something, we just do it. We don't have to have a study group. We don't have to run it by a committee. We don't have to do anything. We went from a Monday Sunday week to a Wednesday Tuesday week in 2 days. We just went in and changed everything.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, so everything we do, we just do it. It's just nice to not have to explain anything, or we think it through and we talk about it, but we don't study it to death, and just I don't miss the corporate side of it at all.
Do you you learned a lot, I know, about the consistency through the corporate side, and so we talked a little bit about the people. What about the food consistency? How do you make sure that your team is always consistent across 4 locations with what the customer's getting when they're served their meal?
Well, we tried to always remember what we can execute and what we cannot, and we take that in mind with everything we do. Is how hard is this to produce this consistently, and we just have our building charts, and we use micros, KDS. We were one of the first people in this area anyway that had where you can go to any kitchen display system in the kitchen and you can tap the item and the building chart will immediately come up in 4 color. So if you have a question about it,
Hmm.
you just highlight the item, hit display media, and everything comes up on the screen. And then you just X out of it and make the item, or you can use it as a training tool. You can pull up any recipe from any training from any station. So if you want to do some of your prep items on the line when it's slow, but you got a couple tickets, you can pull the recipes up there and work on it there. Or I think that tool helps us stay consistent. That helps, and just training and units of measure, and just eye for detail.
Yep, eye for detail. I hear you. What other technologies? And I'm not asking you to talk about ScheduleFly because that's not the purpose. I'm outside of ScheduleFly as a technology. What are some of the other? You mentioned micros. What else are you guys using, or what things are you excited about with restaurant technology going forward?
Well, we just switched everything over to. We just switched all of our office into to a third party, so we've gotten rid of our office completely.
Oh wow!
It's a company out in Colorado, and it's called Okra, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, so everything's online. We scan our invoices out there, and
Oh wow!
we've gotten rid of all of our filing, all of our payroll.
Nice.
Yeah, all of our vendor checks, like for liquor, beer, and wine, are now through another company, which I forget the name of. But so we don't have to write checks for any deliveries for liquor, beer, and wine. Which South Carolina, you can't do terms. So, which is nice. So I don't know. We tried to look at everything this year and just make it simpler. Like, what can somebody do better than we can do that gets us out of the office and the restaurants and that kind of thing. And ScheduleFly, now that you mentioned, I just have to tell you that I guess we switched over to y'all and I don't even know when, a long time ago, but it's amazing to me that I can send out one message to the whole team. And I like it too, because when I go into restaurants, I don't always know everybody's name. So I'm going in the door, I can pull up the grid for the day and see who I was working. By the time I get in there, I know who's who.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. The crib sheet. Yeah, every day. Well, that's awesome. Okay, good. That's really cool. About the, getting rid of the office stuff is it's
huge.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That creates
a big deal.
lots more time for creativity and focus on other things that are just more important. Not more important, but
profitable.
More profitable. Yeah, that's right. All that stuff's important, but
I can't build relationships with guests or team members if I'm sitting in the office looking over the books. And we'll still have to look at that, but it'll be much less. We've cut about 80% of our office out.
That's awesome.
So,
speaking of building relationships, and I know you do a lot of that. Is that something that's? Does your team do they do a really good job of building relationships that you've got? Because you're in kind of I don't know much about Bluffton. Hilton Head certainly a lot of folks vacation there, so you probably have a lot of new faces all the time. But in terms of generating repeat business and relationships with your existing customers in both markets, is that something your team focuses a lot on? Just a lot on for consistency?
We talk about it every day.
Yeah.
What can we do differently to help us be our guest first choice every time they go out?
Yeah.
Are we opening the door for them when they leave and thanking them? Are we opening the door when they come in and welcoming them? Are we talking to them? What are we talking to them about? It's key. It's crucial.
I actually am curious about this. This is something we bat around every now and then here, but do you think that would it be useful for you guys or for your customers to know who on your team is working or when they're working? So if they have a favorite server or bartender, they know that, hey, John's working Friday night, I'm going to go in then because he pours a good drink or whatever. And then it gets into privacy stuff. I'm just curious there, is there value in your customers knowing when certain members of the team are working so that they can continue to foster that relationship?
We're always real careful with our with privacy of the people that work with us.
Yeah.
And we don't give out their schedules to anybody, or we don't communicate that because we never really know who's calling.
Yeah.
So I would be reluctant. I think it's fine if the server bartender wants to say, hey, I'm working, this is my schedule this week, come on in. But that's not something I'd feel comfortable with. Just if someone called asking when someone's working, to let them know.
Yeah.
We always say we'll just take a message.
Well, I was just curious about that. One of the things that prompted this is we had somebody that is a new user, and I think it was like out in, I don't know, somewhere on the West Coast a couple months ago, said, how come I can't send my schedule to, all of my regular customers? I want them to know when I'm working. I thought, well, I don't know. I don't know why you can't. It's not something we do, but I just thought it was an interesting, prompted a lot of interesting conversations.
Now that initiated by the employee, by the team member, that's their choice. And I think that, that is actually a really great idea. But again, that would need to be initiated on their end. I wouldn't want to take responsibility for that.
Yeah. I wonder if they do that. Like, do any of them get their customers' emails or whatever and say, hey, I'll let you know when I'm working? Do you know that?
That's a really good question. I don't have any idea. I know a lot of them know them all by name.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of regulars, and but I'll send out a fly note and ask.
Yeah, ask them. Well, because it seems like there's, I thought about it and I thought, golly, if I were serving, I were tending bar and I had a group of regulars, I would absolutely want them to know when I'm working. I'd want them to know what's happening at the restaurant, what specials we have tonight, when I'm working. No, I want them there then, right?
I agree. That's valid. That's a great idea, because we always tell them, whether you're a server or bartender, you're basically a salesman, and this is your territory.
There you go. Yes, that's right.
Do what you need to do to build your sales, and we'll support you 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
okay.
Yeah, that'd be a nice feature.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there we go. Schedule fly feature, maybe launching over a podcast, but we've certainly talked about it's all this stuff though. It's like privacy issues and then who stores the database of emails and who owns it, all that stuff. But anyway, those are details you can get. I was just curious, so
simpler times it would have been a no-brainer.
Yeah,
but now everything's complicated.
That's exactly right. You got to get an attorney involved and update our terms. But okay, well that's interesting, man. Price anything? Oh, one other thing I did want to ask you about, because I really admire this, is that I know that you and your wife Karen have worked together all these years, and you have different roles in the business, but that's a really cool thing that you guys have been able to do that. And
we met. She was a server one summer and came down with friends, and my brother-in-law, his brother was managing for us for the summer, and he hired her, and we just started going out, and Heather and Fernando met at Truffles as well.
Nice.
We've made a lot of. I used to tell people at orientations when. To look around, because the person you're sitting next to you might end up marrying.
Yes.
So be nice to everybody.
Absolutely. That's hilarious, man. Well, man, I really appreciate the time, Price, and really enjoyed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great conversation. Enjoyed talking to you. Learned a lot, and just. Gosh, man, appreciate the business. And so where do folks, if folks are coming to the Hilton Head area, where do they need to stay so they're near Truffles so they can come see y'all, or Chow Daddy's?
Well, Truffles on Hilton Head is located in Sea Pines Plantation, which is, like the nicest, I think the nicest resort on the island.
Yeah.
And then Chow Daddy's is the Sonesta is in Shipyard, which is a great hotel they've just redone, and Chow Daddy's is very close to that. And then Bluffton, I guess Palmetto Bluff would be the best place to stay there. If you get down here, definitely give me a call. We'll take care of you.
Oh man, I definitely will. In fact, we haven't been to Hilton. It's been probably about 8 or 10 years since we've been to Hilton Head, so we need to get back that way. So we'll make it happen. I'll definitely let you know.
Oh, please do.
Sure. Well, Price, thank you very much. I'll let you go back to your day, but tell your team thanks as well, and your bride, and appreciate the time, and we'll catch up soon.
All right, thanks. We'll appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.